Peace and blessings, everybody. This is Karev, Heritage Hip Hop, man. You know how much I like comic books. And today we have a Blerd Hop exclusive from the Fortress of Solitude comic book store in Newark, New Jersey, the premier comic book store in the land. And if you don't think so, come visit them and find out. Here I have three individuals who are into the media from a different standpoint. Please introduce yourself from the left to the right.
My name is Nasi Gifted, creative director of PBS Media Studios, as well as writer for the comic book series PV Soldier.
Okay.
My name is Dan McNeil. I'm co-founder and co-owner of Kid Monster Creations and co-creator of Corsairs.
My name is Amir, aka The Magic Man. I'm a host of a podcast called Paperbacks and Soundtracks.
So if you haven't been on Heritage Hip Hop to know two of the three faces, you're corny, do your homework. And for the new face that's here, welcome. And we've been working on this for a while and I can't wait for ours.
Word.
So here's the question. Everybody who does comic book question and answers and interviews always ask about the same thing. We're the black people in the comics. What are our voices? Blah, 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 blah. I wanted to reverse this interview to show the depth of what you do and how important it is. So instead of asking you why is it important to have our voice in the media, how empty is the media now that we do have a voice?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question, brother.
You probably should start with the media guy.
All right, say it one more time for me.
How empty is the genres now with us in it, as opposed to us not being in it and not having no voice in it?
I don't want to say it's completely empty because, you know, when I come to the comic book shops, I do search out books for characters that look like myself. When I first started collecting, I wanted to have a box that had my people in it. So when I have children one day, I can pass it on to them. But I don't think it's empty. I just think that is very just difficult to find. And they don't get the push that they deserve all the time. So I don't think it's empty. I just think we're hidden. And even in the media, you know what I'm saying? Me being a podcaster, there are not a lot of podcasts where the hosts talk about comic books. I talk about music also, but there's a few that I enjoy, and they gave me the courage to step out and talk about something that gave me some ability to escape what's going on in the real world right now. Even though comics reflect some of it, but I think we're there. We're just hidden gems. I think we're there.
I probably would piggyback on what Amir said and say our current society is all about immediacy. If I can't get it right there, I don't want it. And to find the works of myself and the two gentlemen around me, you know, you may have to do a little bit of work off the beaten path in some situations. I think the three of us are very blessed to have a nice following where we're now been pushed to the forefront. But for those guys and women and cosplayers who traditionally aren't known, you might have to look a little bit harder for them. So I agree with him here. I don't know if it's empty. It's just if you do the work, it's there for you. It's there for you.
So just piggybacking off of everything that they said, I think it's a lot of hidden gems. See, just being on the forefront and working alongside a lot of the independents, we're not mainstreamed enough. So even though we have these storylines that have depth, a lot of people don't know about, you know, the story and the storylines. I mean, I've worked with this brother here and a number of other independent creators, and their storylines are so dope. But of course their followings don't reflect, you know, the storyline that they're doing. So, you know, just being able to shed light, you know, with platforms like this brother has put out, to be able to showcase some of the great works that's going out there. You know, you'll be able to see more of that, you know, the depth and everything. I mean, I can name about 10 titles that most people probably wouldn't know about, but but should, you know, investigate and everything. I mean, people have been doing successful Kickstarters. They've been doing a ton of things. But, you know, once again, it's not mainstream. They don't have a movie attached to it. It's not a toy deal attached to it. It's not even a licensing agreement attached to it. I know that one, you know, avenue, like where Netflix is kind of looking for writers and everything, but the stuff that you see that is mainstream is all recycled stuff. You know, like I have a conversation with my son, and he was like, "Oh, Dad, how do you know about all that stuff?" I was like, "They had that same stuff when I was a kid. They just put a new label on it, you know." And most of the time, they don't even put a new label on it. They put the same label on it, and just you know, reshoot it as a new style, or you know, try to modernize it or whatever the case may be. Especially when you look at, you know, as far as the comics, animation, and all of those things, they just kind of re-bring some of this stuff out. So, you know, the individuals that I kind of connect with are those independents who are bringing new breath into what's going on in the mainstream, you know, as well as Hollywood and everything, you know, because I think they have been more creatively deficient, you know, with that as well. So, and they're looking for new sources of material, and that's why diversity is a big thing, you know, and more writers in the room is a big thing. Is because they don't have the creativity anymore, and they keep regurgitating the same stories, you know. Well, actually, I mean, you know, from a writer's standpoint, they always say it's 8 stories. Then they say it's only one real true story and everything, you know, and then it's just told in a different way or from a different lens or whatever the case may be. But there is some things that's out there that's super powerful, and you know, you just have to do your research. You actually have to go outside of the mainstream stuff and just you know, I go to a number of black comic conventions where, you know, like I find some real phenomenal stuff that's going on, you know, from this coast over to the west coast.
So I have to ask you a question, because in hip hop, pain and not having is the voice of the culture. Is white supremacy the voice of comic culture? Because if I really look at it, isn't that Batman's real power? Isn't that what makes the Avengers work? Isn't that what makes the Fantastic Four credible? So if that's the story of the comic culture, what is our story? Well, how do we actually fight that with our narrative?
Ooh.
Well,
you gotta start
that's about it. Yeah, I mean, we have to carve our own lane. I mean, and the one thing that, you know, like from the '90s creators to now, social media is a big platform to be able to tell our story unfiltered, unbiased, unsponsored, you know, per se, where they actually have to change the narrative, you know, to meet a certain audience. There's always a niche audience for those individuals who are seeking your product. So to be able to tell your story without having to worry about these various constraints has been, you know, the biggest avenue. You know, like there used to be a censorship in comics and everything. Now, you know, I'm looking like they done did all types of stuff now. But, you know, like you know, certain things I was like, man, my kids shouldn't be even looking at this stuff. Like it's you know, it's definitely. But they're talking about social issues. They're talking about stuff that's going on in the community. I mean, and us to be able to tell our own narrative from our perspective, our lens, and everything, unfiltered. I mean, you know, that becomes very authentic. You know, to be able to do those type of things. And I mean, that's.
I think a way that we can kind of fight against that is like form our own Avengers. You know what I'm saying? But not on the pages. Behind the pages. So there's a story out called Bitter Root, right?
Oh yeah.
I talked to Chuck Brown before. I've talked to David F. Walker, Sanford Green, and I looked at them and I'm like, man, y'all really just formed your own Avengers and kind of took over the comic book stores for a little while with that first story arc. You know what I'm saying? And they about to kill it again in February. So I think that's one way that we can, you know, kind of form our own. But another way is we got to support our brothers and sisters' stories. Like you don't know the story till you open it and read it, right? So just take a chance on it. They're taking a chance on themselves. Just like, you know, you're taking a chance with your show, I'm taking a chance with my show, give it a listen. You might find some stuff on there that you like. So I think that's another way that we can kind of change the table. I think the tables are already changing. Number one, because when I first started collecting comics like 4 years ago, I always tell the story, I was on this side of the table a lot, like with Marvel, DC, and reading those recycled stories, because my older brother, he's been reading comics long time. He's in his 40s. So he would tell me, like, oh, I remember that story, I remember this, I remember this. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna go to that end of the table and start picking up these independent comic books and supporting the indie comics. And then I went to ChemFest and started seeing more, but our people. So I'm like, I have a lot of money, but I'm like, let me get what I can while I'm here.
You go broke in there, bro.
And start reading. So I think that's one thing that we can do. Start supporting ourselves, building our own teams, coming together and taking over these comic book tables.
I think, again, I have to piggyback off my brother Amir here. You have the beauty of having us, quote unquote, older heads who are teaching our sons and daughters that they're characters that look like you, sound like you, come from the same area, and can be just as cool as the mainstream artists. And in addition to that, there's a thirst for that, and this is a wonderful time for the black and brown creator. I really, really, truly believe that. I think the other thing too, and I'm going to put the onus back on creators of color, whether it's media, whether it's writing, whether it's drawing, to go against the quote unquote big two or any other large company. It has to be quality. We cannot expect our communities to purchase our wares if the quality is low. And I'm talking everything from the binding on your book to typos to the whole gamut. And we have to be able to produce a quality sound item that can be consumed by the populace of people that we want to really work with. So
sort of like Corsairs.
There's some stumbling blocks there, but I'm a strong advocate for that, because you can't get mad at people bypassing your table if the work isn't of a certain level.
And then I want to kind of talk about what Amir was talking about. You got to give people a chance. Because I mean, when we think about the smartphone, or we think about the iPhone, or any of those things, right? They give it to you 99% done, right? And then they get the consumer's feedback, and then they give you what we call an update, right? So you got to be able to get the feedback, and then be able to receive that constructively, specifically, and then be able to use that to help improve your product. I know that even for my story writing and everything, the feedback that I got, I was able to, not just change episode 1, I would change episode 2, episode 3 and everything, and just improve the writing moving forward. Now with the graphic novel and just hearing all of the, the feedback, and, not changing the story or anything like that, but just doing slight tweaks, to make sure that, you're addressing some of the things that's going on, and then improving the product, so you can improve the quality,
Yeah, that's a great exercise too, because in your next story levels up.
Definitely.
So,